Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Bridges Conversations. My name is Steve Gibbons. I'm the executive director of the Bridges Foundation in St. Louis, Missouri. We're an organization committed to offering and presenting the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius Loyola in everyday life. Today, we are joined by Lisa Kelly in Omaha, Nebraska. Lisa is the author of a new book called The Spiritual Path, Embarking on the Journey of a Lifetime. And we're going to be talking about that for the next 30 minutes or so, and about the integration of Ignatian spirituality into goal setting for both individuals and organizations. Lisa, good afternoon.
Thank you. Hi, Steve. Good to be here, and thank you for everybody in Bridges and all the incredible work you do. It's so nice to have companions on the road,
Yeah,
and that's kind of
indeed.
what I feel like. I feel like this Ignatian world is very small and yet very big at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Let me just say a few words about Lisa, and then I'm going to ask her to do her own uh, introduction of sorts. But let me tell you a little bit about her so she doesn't have to worry about hitting all the details. Lisa is a lifelong Catholic. She's a wife and a mother. She's been married for 32 years. Her and her husband have four adult children. Um, Yeah, sorry. And then she's also the co-director of a nonprofit called La Storta, a name that be familiar to many who know anything about the history of Saint Ignatius and his journey. La Storta is the Center for Ignatian Spirituality and Leadership. And through its Discerning Leadership program, she and others accompany Catholic Church leaders, like the heads of orders, the heads of agencies, diocesan offices, to develop their leadership skills and facilitate synodality within the church and within church organizations. As I mentioned, she has this new book out that we're going to be discussing, and she's also a regular blogger for Loyola Press's Magis, IgnatianSpirituality.com website. In the past, she's lived and worked in the Dominican Republic and El Salvador and Bolivia, and has experience working with people with disabilities, with immigrants, with refugees, in medical missions and Catholic healthcare, with food salvage, with homes for teen mothers. Lots of really great stuff. We could probably talk for several hours about all the things
Yeah.
that you've been involved in. But to get us going, just tell us a little bit about your own upbringing, your family of origin, and a little bit about the foundations that got you going and set you on the path to what you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It's been a ride, I will tell you, and it has been a strongly Catholic ride. I was raised in a Catholic family. I will kind of say in name only. My father was Protestant, mom was Catholic, but we didn't do a lot of practice outside of church. Although I was required to go to Catholic school for 16 years, so all the way from kindergarten all the way through Notre Dame. I had a pretty solid Catholic education, and I think that was really what embedded this faith practice and this belief system in me. Um, at one point after Notre Dame, I was like, oh my God, I've had so much Catholic education. I need to get out of this Catholic bubble. You know, it is, for professional legitimacy, there's got to be something else out there. What am I missing? And so I ended up going to grad school at Harvard and studying public policy. And it was ironically, I would say, my experience at Harvard that made me strengthen and really confirm my conviction
Mm.
of Catholic faith. And not that there's anything wrong with Harvard, absolutely loved it, fantastic people, learned a ton, but I just realized everything was starting without the conviction of the value of human dignity or the primacy of care of the poor. And I was like, what? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And so I think it was actually that was those grad school years that really told me, no, the way I want to live and the way I see the world is definitely through a Catholic lens.
Mm. What was the impetus or the journey toward Ignatian spirituality or the spiritual exercise? Where did that come into play?
Yeah. So I already had 3 kids, already married. We moved to Omaha, Nebraska, so my husband could teach at Creighton. And honestly, I didn't have the word for it, but I felt very desolate just in my local parish. It just wasn't diocesan faith life, just wasn't fulfilling my spirit at all.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody invited us to join the Ignatian Associate Community, which there is one here in Omaha. And that entailed doing the spiritual exercises. And I realized I had no idea anything about Ignatian spirituality, but in my heart, it was just the yes, like finally, there's something else, there's another way. And so my husband and I both did the spiritual exercise together in 2002 to 2004. And it really changed my life. And in fact, I will say I was with my spiritual director, I was a little pissed that in all those years of Catholic education that I paid for or somebody paid for, nobody had said the word discernment. Nobody had told me about the spiritual exercises, never heard it in a homily, never saw it in a document. And so it was really a revelation to me to enter into the Ignatian world.
So what was your career path after Harvard, and what was the career from there to, I don't want to necessarily retrace the whole thing, but what kind of work were you involved in that eventually led you to, the Dominican Republic and El Salvador and Bolivia? And so where did how does that all fit together?
Yeah. So most of my work has been in public and nonprofit administration. And over the years, I've done it as a consultant or as an employee with different things. Most of my travel overseas was because my husband and I discerned through our spiritual exercises experience to go and be crazy and get out of this American culture and take 3 children under the age of 9 to go live in the developing world. And so we had some time in Bolivia at the Marino Language School, 2 years in the Dominican Republic at the Jesuit ILAC mission, some of you might know, down in Santiago. And then another time in El Salvador when my husband was researching for his book on Rutilio Grande, and I got to study at the UCA with Dean Brackley. And it was just all these different experiences that profoundly shaped my understanding of my call and work with leadership, because leadership in a faith-based perspective is different than your traditional hierarchical or organizational leadership. So when I came back, I started with a couple other people. I started a nonprofit dedicated to integrating leadership and Christian spirituality together so people could practice everyday life, include their spirituality in what they were doing.
Yeah. And that's probably a good connection to the book. Again, the book is called The Spiritual Path, Embarking on the Journey of a Lifetime. Tell me a little bit about how the idea for that book surfaced, and what you're trying to do with this book, and what's its cause and its meaning and purpose. What's its principle and foundation? So,
yeah. I definitely feel like it's very similar to Ignatius's journey. There was a cannonball moment, and then it took 16 years, just like for him to get to Los Torda. It was a work over time, and it was a very divine work in my own development. Basically, I was in this workshop. I was the mission integration consultant for a Catholic healthcare organization, probably a little bit like your experience with Aquinas, I think, and trying to ensure that your medical leader professionals understands the faith-based. But this workshop was about strategic planning, and it was an organization called Best Year Yet, used globally, a fantastic system for corporate America and for secular leaders. And I'm in this workshop, and as the presenter is going through each step of this process, in my mind, I'm like, wait, that's Ignatian. wait, that's Ignatian. And each step, the process is a 10 question process. Each step, I was like, you're speaking Ignatian and you don't even know it. Like, it's using secular terminology. And in an Ignatian world, we might look at it a little differently, but the process still applied to me. So I started using it personally, doing my own, what they were called best year yet plans. But for me, I was sitting in my sacred space every day, talking with Christ, doing my colloquies and my examen, and I'm integrating this best year yet process myself. And so after some time, I offered to share it with my own Ignatian associate community, and a couple people there said, you should really make this into a retreat. So I made it into a retreat that now we've offered several years in a row, 2.5-day retreat. And every time I did the retreat, people were like, you need to make this into a book. And so one thing just kept leading to another. And finally I decided, I'm going to start to write.
Nice. Well, talk a little bit about, so who is this book for in your mind, and what's the kind of the flow and the format of it? If people pick this up, what are they gonna experience?
Yeah. I hope it would kind of be helpful to two different audiences. One are people who've never been exposed to Ignatian spirituality, like I hadn't been, because sometimes it's hard to just jump into something Ignatian, and there's language you don't understand. What's a colloquy and things like that. So I hope it might be for people who aren't ready to do the 19th annotation. Let's just start with reading this book. And in that book, you'll be exposed to some things, but you'll also be asked to look at your own life a little bit differently. So that would probably be the first group I would consider. The other are people who've gone through the spiritual exercises and know all the lingo, but then it's like, oh yeah, during that retreat, it was great, but now I'm back in the real world. And how am I going to apply this in my world, in my life, day to day? And so either of those kind of people can go through the book. And the hope is you come out with a literal plan, a very specific personal plan as to how you are going to walk with Christ, or walk with your walking partner, as I call them in the book, over the next month or 6 months or year in your life. Where are you being called, and how? So I recognize, we all have very different conceptions of God. For some of us, it is Jesus. Some of us are very comfortable. Ignatius was very comfortable with Mary as well. I think it's really important in this book that people have their own understanding of the divine as they walk. And so I just call it the walking partner. And through this book, you're going to have a walking partner who is going to walk with you as you go. And so the flow of the book is really learning what I call the cycle of growth, but it's just from Vatican II, see, judge, act, and the Jesuits add, reflect. And it's doing that cycle again and again in all parts of your life. And so when the book ends and you've used this process again and again, you literally have a plan. And I'm just going to hold it up. So
please do.
Last page in the book, so you can keep referring back to, you literally have a 1-page plan that says, okay, God, this is what you and I discern together to do over the next, 6 months, and let's go for it. And so it's not just using the book and then I'm done with the book and I'm done. It's, okay, the book is a launch onto how am I going to live going forward.
I like that. We have a few people watching. If you have any questions for Lisa or for me, please feel free to put them into the chat or the comment section right there on Facebook, and I will see them and get to them a little bit later on. Is this a book? I read earlier when I was introducing you that it's a book about the integration of Ignatian spirituality into goal setting for individuals and organizations. So is this a program that a group of people could do together, whether they work together or volunteer together, or how does that work?
Yeah. So exactly the same way the original process, it was for organizations or leaders. And it gives you these questions that really surface what are our priorities? What's our way of thinking that's of the Spirit of God or not of the Spirit, not of God? And how can we collectively move forward? And so it would spark those conversations and the articulation of what are our shared goals. So for something like bridges, you would come together just like kind of you would for a normal strategic planning process. But in this one, you're saying, okay, Christ is in the room with us. And we are all talking with Christ and discerning where are we as an organization being called in the next 6 months. And what's a temptation and what's an invitation and things like that. So yes, it's a very process that can be applied both for organizations and individuals. And that was, I think, most helpful, especially for organizations that are faith-based, like a Catholic Charities or a Salvation Army. Because anytime I tried to do the traditional process with them, you kind of bristle because it's about producing results and maybe profit margin or something like that. And you're like, no, we're not supposed to be thinking that way. So this kind of gives an Ignatian language to discerning what goals this organization or this group is being called to together. It's very powerful.
Nice. You mentioned cannonball moments earlier, and of course, anyone familiar with Ignatian spirituality and the story of Ignatius of Loyola knows his cannonball moment was literally, getting hit in the leg with a cannonball, and then what his time and recovery taught and revealed to him, how these moments of trauma are setback, what might be seen as setbacks can be times of great growth. And which brings us to a part of your story, which is, really important, which is when you were writing this book, and it was, my understanding, it was complete and kind of ready to go, but not yet published. You had your own little cannonball moment back in 2021. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think this is a moment you and I talked about. We kind of have a shared experience here. This is back in 2021, and the book, close to finish. I'd sent it out to people to preview, see what you think. Still editing, certainly not anywhere near ready to publish. And my husband and I discerned that we were called to Spain. In fact, he was going to teach for SLU in Madrid. And I was going to work on the Ignatian Camino and finish the book and improve my Spanish. And this was a very clear discernment we made over 2 years. We sold our house, we had our visas, and 6 weeks before we were ready to leave, I was diagnosed very out of the blue with stage 4 lymphoma. And it was a very rare type that the doctor said, well, you have a 50-50 chance of being alive in a year, even if we start chemo tomorrow. And the survival rate for 5 years was 8%. And I'm 51 years old. And that was definitely a cannonball moment for me. I'm sure, Steve, and probably many others have experienced the shock of a cancer diagnosis and the experience of my body is withering away no matter what I do. And in the end, no matter how much family support you have, and I had amazing family, amazing community, it's me and my walking partner alone in that hospital room every night. Mm-hmm. And boy, we better be comfortable having conversations, and we better be comfortable discerning what am I supposed to do with this last year of my life, and what does it all mean? And actually, ironically, I was really grateful for my spiritual path plan, that I had been working this process and doing it personally. And I'm literally laying in the hospital bed and I pull out my plan and I look at it. And part of it was desolating. Like, I'm not going to be able to go to Spain. I'm not going to be able to work on the Camino. All of these goals that I discerned and were on there, I just had to literally cross them out. But then there were other goals on there that I had said, this is the mom I want to be. And this is, the IA member I want to be, part of my community. And I had goals for those. And the question that popped into my head was, okay, you got 1 year left. How are you going to live these? Mm-hmm. And I was so glad I had that written out, because otherwise, where do I start that discernment? Where do I have that conversation with God? I don't think it would have been as easy for me. So I did. I spent that whole year, about 9 months, planning my funeral, doing my goodbyes, passing off my passwords, all the things you kind of got to do when you're preparing for death, and having the conversations I needed to have with people in my life. So that was great growth. We'll say that was a great growth experience. In January of 22, 9 months after, I've been doing lots of chemo, trying lots of different things to no avail. My bones are decalcifying. I have a huge lymph node on the back of my head. And my doctors call me one day and say, look, the best we can do for you at this point is buy you 6 months with a bone marrow transplant from your daughter. She's 19 years old. Mm-hmm. It's a very hard process. It requires 6 weeks in the hospital, 100 days of 24/7 care. It's not going to cure you. So we can just not do it, and you can just call hospice tomorrow, and you'll have about 3 weeks left. And by the way, you have 24 hours to let us know. And that was a moment where I was so grateful I had these practices of spiritual discernment. I was so grateful that I understood in my mind, okay, God, it's me and you. And so, of course, what do? You call your spiritual director. That was the first thing I did. And she, brilliant Sister of Mercy, has walked with me for almost 15 years now. And she says, well, 2 very important things. She's not going to give me the answer. She didn't give me which way to go. She said, there's no moral right and wrong here. You're not choosing to die because of financial reasons or anything like that. If you don't choose the transplant, it's understandable because it's not a cure. Mm-hmm. And also, though, most importantly, she said, no matter what you choose, no matter which path you go, God will be with you. And God will be with your family. Either way. And that just gave me such a sense of relief and peace. And I could, in my mind, doing my Ignatian imagination, picture that path that had 2 different ways, a fork in the road. And okay, I'm like, okay, Jesus, okay, God, we're standing here at the top of this path. Which way should we go? And I really used my Ignatian imagination a lot to say, what might the next 6 months look like if I go one way, and what might they look like for me and for others if I go the other way? Yeah. So I made the call with about 45 minutes to spare, and I'm still here today.
And here you are. Yeah. You mentioned the first time we talked, you said the phrase, it was learning from the inside out during that time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think that it's the journey of conversion that we all go through if we experience a trauma or go deep into something. First of all, when I was doing my actual deathbed meditation, and I look back over my life, I had so much consolation. Like, I had such a phenomenal life. And the only thing that brought me desolation was, damn it, I didn't get that book done. I spent so much time and I didn't get that book out. And I, was just aware of that was the gut, the thing sticking in my gut. But everything else I was so grateful for. Mm-hmm. But secondly, I realized everything about our faith tradition, everything about Ignatian spirituality, it's one thing for people outside of you to tell you this is the way it is. God is in all things, all the mantras we live by. But when you go through something like that, for me, I feel like I learned my faith from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And all those teachings and all those practices about the primacy of relationships in life, they all made so much more sense. And really now I feel like I can live them from a deep personal conviction, not just because someone on the outside told me, this is what Ignatius said, this is what the church says. I'm like, no, this is what Lisa says, and this is what Lisa feels. Yeah. So that I think impacted the book a bit.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your ongoing work with this book and with the presentations and the retreats. And so about La Storta, which is your center there in Omaha. First of all, La Storta has a meaning in the Ignatian story. Can you remind us all where La Storta comes into play in Ignatius's story, and then talk a little bit about what you and others are doing there?
Yeah, so La Storta is a little town about 25 miles outside of Rome, and it was the place that Ignatius stopped to pray before going to Rome and petitioning the Pope to create a religious order. This was like 16 years after that cannonball moment. He had spent that time writing the spiritual exercises, being educated in Paris, meeting up with his companions. They tried to go to Jerusalem, continually discerned what to do. And then he discerned, okay, I'm going to go to ask to form an order in Rome. And it was there in La Storta he stopped, and he talked about this in his autobiography, and also it's in a couple other works of the companions who were with him. And he prayed, he just said, Lord, place me with your son. Whatever happens, whatever the Pope says, he didn't pray for, give me what I want, give me what I think we need. He just said, place me with your son. Mm-hmm. And he clearly talks about, in response, he heard a bit of a conversation between God and Jesus about this man. And then God saying, I will be favorable to you in Rome. And it was that sense that he had God walking with him the rest of this journey. And sure enough, he went to Rome, and the charter was granted and the society was born. So La Storta for us, I formed this with two other colleagues who were also interested in the integration of Ignatian spirituality and particularly leadership. La Storta for us is holding that, what we'd say, place of pause, and having leaders and individuals really discern, what does it mean to be placed with your son? What does it mean to walk and be in companionship? And our job is really just to hold those sacred spaces. So we hold them through retreats, we hold them through spiritual direction, we hold it through leadership coaching, and now through the Spiritual Path book.
Yeah. You're not specifically doing like a 19th annotation retreat?
No,
it's not
no,
that. Gotcha.
No, not at all. Because we have people like you at Bridges. I would totally send people to you for something like that. No, it's really interesting, and I would also encourage if people ever have an interest. We work with, I don't say through, we work with an organization in Rome called the Discerning Leadership Program. And the Discerning Leadership was developed actually by the Jesuits in Rome at the behest of Francis, who said, teach my church to discern. And not necessarily be Ignatian, not necessarily do the spiritual exercises, but he wanted a discerning church. And so that program pairs us up one-on-one with church leaders to walk with them, companion with them in their leadership in a discernment posture.
Right. Nice. Yeah. And that plays in well to this idea of your walking partner, right?
Yep.
Is that at times a physical, not physical, but I mean something that you do when you walk? Or is it all metaphorical?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, I would say, and I think I say very clear, our relationships, everybody around us can be the face of God for us at any moment in any situation. So very definitely I need to approach any relationship, and especially my faith community, just like you guys in Bridges, approach each other, and you're going to be the face of God for somebody today. I can guarantee that. I really believe that. And we all have that. So I very much think when I go through my examine, God, where did I see you yesterday? And where did I miss you yesterday? You were right there, and God, I missed you. I'm so sorry. But mostly also metaphorically or in prayer as I'm discerning my goals. I look at the upcoming week or the upcoming month, and I say, okay, what do I have to do, in these next 2 weeks? What are you going to be with me to do? What do I need you to be with me to do? Because I don't have the courage to do it on my own, or, I don't have the discipline to do it on my own. And so it's really bringing those, that walking partner is, I wouldn't say just metaphorical. I would say it's very personal and real to me, as real as Christ is to any of us, I think.
We're all on that journey,
Yep.
and we get to choose who we walk with.
Yep.
And so thank you. Yeah, I don't see that we have any questions from anybody out there. I'll throw one more at you, but if anyone has a question, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
You are also an Ignatian associate. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and where that is and what that means for you in as part of this journey?
Yeah, they really launched me into the whole Ignatian world. So I am forever grateful for that community. So the Ignatian Associates were birthed by the Wisconsin province of the Jesuits in 1990s by the provincial Bert Thalen. And he really felt the need for lay people to live the spirituality of the Jesuits, especially with regards to Jesuit ministries, because he knew the Jesuits were fewer and fewer numbered, but really for any life vocation. And so he birthed us as a work of the province. Now we are a completely independent nonprofit, just like Bridges. We're our own lay-run organization without a necessarily canonical tie, but obviously a spiritual tie to the Jesuits. And so all of us have gone through the spiritual exercises in formation. We do that one-on-one with a spiritual director and with a cohort community that we all walk through the exercises together. And then after that, we make promises, if we feel called or discern to do so, of simplicity of life, apostolic availability, and fidelity to the gospel and our Ignatian companions. So I kind of see all the folks at Bridges as my Ignatian companions. So I'm living my promises out right here today. So thank you for that.
And the Ignatian Associate network exists kind of where?
It's mainly right now in the Midwest because we were birthed by that Wisconsin province. So we have communities in Chicago, Omaha, 2 in Milwaukee, one of which is Spanish speaking, Minneapolis, Denver, and starting this year, Oklahoma City. Wow. And honestly, we looked at St. Louis and said, does St. Louis need this? And we're like, no, they got Bridges. What do they need us for? So we did look at St. Louis, and I feel like you guys have all the trappings of a lay Ignatian community that's really dedicated to living this out. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Looks like we have no questions. We have an earlier comment from our friend Frank, who's just helping us out for his for any non-Catholics who might be listening as to what a colloquy was that you mentioned earlier, and Dan, our friend Dan Mose, just wanted to say he's loving your energy, your authenticity, and he's already ordered your book. So there you go.
Thank you, Dan. One down.
Dan's great. And Frank asked, are associates akin to being an oblate of an order?
Yeah, you had the same question. I think we started off with the hope that would be the situation from the Jesuit province, but the GC 36, I want to say it was, really clarified they weren't ready to take on official oblates. So no, we don't have an official canonical connection to the Jesuits at this point. So that's okay.
Right. All right. Well, listen, we are, I think about out of time, and I want to just thank you I enjoyed reading your book and getting to know you a little bit, and I hope our paths and your path with Bridges perhaps crosses at some time. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for those of you who are tuned in. Please share this broadcast with them, and it'll be on podcast within a couple of days, so you can listen to it again. So
thanks. Can I give a huge shout out to Dan Coughlin, who reached out to me and made this connection with you. I'm very grateful for his leadership in making this happen. So thank you to Dan, and you as well for your time and you're sharing your journey with me, because if you guys haven't heard Steve's journey, you need to hear it. It's pretty powerful.
Well, thanks.
All right. Next time.
All right, there you go. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. I had to admit that I have. Wait a minute, I'm trying to find my thing here. We have a date for our next Bridges Conversations on Friday, June 6th. I don't. I've not firmed up who I'm going to be speaking with yet. We'll let you all know as we always do. If you have any ideas, please send them my way. That's how I came to interview Lisa today. It was through Dan Coughlin. So anyway, thanks all. We'll see you all in June, and have a good day. All right,
Thank
Lisa,
you.
just hold on, and I'll be with you in just a minute. All right.